Welcome into another edition of The Session with Londa and David. My name is David Austin.
I'm Londa Sherwood Austin. Welcome back.
We are going to have a great program today, Londa, and it's because we've practiced it for the last 10 or 15 minutes. I thought we were recording. We were not, in fact, recording.
Yep. So here we are. What I have to tell you is you will want to share this podcast with someone that you know and love, or someone who you're irritated by who needs to hear this message today. Whatever the case, this is a universal message in today's podcast. We're going to talk a little bit about health. We're going to talk a little bit about common decency in public. And then after that, who knows where it's going to go. David, go.
It's going to be a great show, and I want to call this episode The Sauna with Londa and David, because I've got some strong feelings about the public sauna at Gold's Gym in Richland, Washington.
Okay, back it up a little.
Okay.
Tell me more about, so you're going to the sauna, but why? The last couple weeks you've been wanting to go to the sauna.
Right.
Tell me about that.
Well, I was watching an episode of Joe Rogan a couple weeks ago, and he had a health expert on with him, and they were talking about the benefits.
A health expert or a doctor?
I'm not sure which, but they were talking about the health benefits of sauna. And because they were just two guys talking who know a lot about health, it seemed very interesting and normal to talk about health things. They were talking about men's health specifically.
Okay.
And, I'm getting older, so I paid close attention because I want to live longer. And one of the things they talked about was the benefits of regular sauna use.
It's interesting. You said you want to live longer. The day before yesterday, I drove to Seattle, and on my drive, I listened to a podcast about living better. Yes. Living better. Living longer, but I think what you mean is living longer and doing it well.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
Because a lot of people live a long time and they're miserable.
Right. And I'm
not interested.
I have no facility in me for that. I don't want to be miserable ever, and don't think I can be long-term miserable.
Yeah.
And part of that is having good health, because if you have poor health, your mind does crazy stuff. It's just like chronic pain. If you have chronic pain, you're living a pretty rough existence. You know what I mean?
Do I know what you mean?
I don't know if you know what I mean.
You live with me. I live with chronic pain.
Yeah.
Every single day.
Right.
So yeah, it's rough. But do you happen to remember the name of the person that was on the podcast?
No idea. That's why.
Do you remember the name
committing.
of the podcast?
The Joe Rogan.
No. I mean
Experience. I think is what it's called.
Yes, honey.
I don't.
That's the podcast, but like the. Okay.
Nope.
Because I'll probably talk more about it. The podcast I listened to was Mel Robbins' podcast. The guest that was on was Dr. Vonda Wright.
I'm fond of Vonda.
Yeah. Dr. Vonda Wright. She's an orthopedic surgeon who's about to publish her 6th book. The name of her new book is Unbreakable, and she's talking about bone health and how it goes hand in hand with your overall health, which relates to what you're talking about. So it's funny that you and I were, have been listening to similar kind of things.
Well, I'm a lot more interested in self-help since I met you, because before I met you, I had no time for any of that conversation. I consider myself to be the least introspective person I know, so I don't usually think about things to improve about myself. But I was very attracted to the conversation about having better health. And one of the things they were talking about in this Joe Rogan episode was if you have regular sauna, extended time in the sauna, specifically 20 minutes, 4 times a week at 125 degrees.
120 or 100?
Maybe 120, 125.
I think you said 120.
Okay, that's before. Fine. But whatever, if you do that regularly, all-cause mortality goes down 40%. So you have a 40% better chance of continuing on rather than just dying. And you'd think, they talked about this, you'd think, oh, well, that's not really that big a deal because people who sauna are probably healthy in general. Not true.
I've been there for 2 weeks. They don't look healthy.
Yeah.
They don't all appear healthy.
Right.
But what does healthy look like?
Right.
Maybe we don't know.
And anybody's health journey is unique to them, right?
For sure.
So if you are on the show The Biggest Loser, which I don't know that they still tape.
No,
but
they
when
don't.
they did.
No, because it was such bad,
right. Yeah.
bad diet culture, bad body shaming culture, the whole thing.
Right.
We know better now.
We do. But on that show, those people are going through something very different than what I'm going through. You know what I mean? I'm just trying to do regular movement. That's what I'm trying to do. Regular movement.
Well, interestingly enough, the podcast I listened to with Dr. Vonda, Wright, she talks about when you lose your what's the word?
Mobility.
Mobility, thank you. When you lose your mobility, you become sedentary, and once you become sedentary, you start to die.
I believe that. Yeah.
So she said, it's not as hard as you think. Walk. Our biggest muscles are from the belly button down. Mm-hmm. It's because we were meant to walk. That was just so interesting, like the simple things. We know it, but to have it said in such a plain way by someone who's so well educated and if you, just Google her name. She is well educated, well researched, well published, well respected. One of the few women in orthopedic surgery. Anyway, so just very interesting to listen to her talk about how it's easier than you think. So 4 times a week, you go for a 45-minute walk, and then you go to the sauna. You're in the top tier of health,
right,
and longevity,
right.
Think about that.
That's pretty cool.
It's that simple,
right? And I'm doing disc golf at least 4 or 5 or 6 or sometimes 7 or 8 times a week, at least.
Yeah, you go every day unless the wind is so bad.
And sometimes I go 2 times a day.
You legitimately can't go, and you often go 2 times a day.
Right.
I would say at least 3 times a week. You go twice a day.
Yeah. So I'm loving that. And I'm doing my racquetball. I'm not doing racquetball as much as I had, but that's ever since I tore my hamstring. I've been doing less racquetball. But I love my racquetball group, and I love going and seeing them, and that's very fun too. And now we've added going to the sauna as well. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you know, but if you're a Gold's Gym member, you can add guest pass privileges to your membership for $20 extra, and then you can take anybody you want as many times as you want forever when you go to the gym.
$20 a month.
Yep, $20 a month. So you and I have been going to the sauna over the last couple of weeks, and it's been a lot of fun. But boy, we've seen some crazy stuff in the sauna with Londa and David.
Welcome to part 2. We've discussed the health and the health benefits and how easy it is to live a long, good life. Another thing Dr. Vonda Wright said is if you have sore joints, move them.
Yeah.
Move them.
For sure.
Moving them is like oiling the joint. She said there are very few people who actually need orthopedic surgery. It's a very small percentage of people. Often, she was talking about this tennis player, a friend of hers, who, through professional tennis player, now retired, who through repetitive motion has some pretty significant damage, right? And she said a different orthopedic surgeon had suggested surgery, and you have a pin or a rod or a whatever. And she said, let's back it up a little bit. Talked about diet and anti-inflammatory diet, lean meats, lean proteins, produce and complex carbohydrates, if at all. No alcohol. That's basically an
I'm not willing to go that crazy.
And I have to. So an anti-inflammatory diet, she started there and then added onto it some just very light, almost you would think of it maybe as physical therapy kind of,
right.
Including these walks and some targeted easy exercise, that kind of thing. And in 3 months' time, this person was no longer looking at surgery. So some pretty amazing results. Again, the sauna, those are pretty awesome numbers. If you think about a 40% decrease in
all-cause mortality,
yeah. Which means anything that causes death.
Right.
And for those of you like me, and so that's really good news. It's easier than you think. Okay, yay, easier than I think. I love that. Now we go to the sauna, and what is wrong with people?
I mean, okay.
Part 2. Here we go.
If you are doing anything in public and you would rather than be with people in public, you would rather sit on your phone and watch a video, wear headphones. You selfish jerk. I mean, really? Nobody wants to hear. Or if you're at a restaurant, don't take a FaceTime call. I don't want to hear about your grandkids' test scores. I don't need to know that information.
There's something different about the sound. So if you and I are having a conversation at a restaurant, I've tried to, if somebody takes a FaceTime call, I've tried to just say to myself, okay, it's just like if they were sitting in the booth with the person talking to the person. I've tried to make my brain think that. It's not. The sound is different.
It's tinny.
It's so annoying and offensive. And what has happened to basic, and I know we sound old and old-fashioned. I don't care. I am. It is what has happened to just decency and manners.
Right.
And, I all things in balance, right? I was just talking with one of our daughters yesterday about, kids with sensory issues.
Right.
Okay. And one of her kids, this is how the conversation came. She said one of her kids has this issue with these socks that he has. And he doesn't like to wear the socks because they hug his toes too tight. And she would get really annoyed by it. Like, Jesus, just put the socks on. Right. And it was this fight every day. And then she thought all of a sudden, why don't I just get different socks? Who cares? If I get different socks that don't hug his toes so tight, then he's more comfortable. I don't have the fight every day.
Right.
And so then she got him new socks, right? Okay, that's great. And you think, oh, that's good. She figured it out. Well, then she went on a trip, was in the hotel, put on a pair of socks, took them off, threw them in the trash can. She's like, oh, yeah, I forgot. I hate how those socks fit my feet.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, oh, apple tree.
Yeah.
The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. She has the same kind of a little bit of sensory issue.
Right.
So we were talking about that. And I said, okay, so where's the balance between, and this has to do with being in public and manners and public decency and all that stuff. Where's the balance between, yes, we make it a little more comfortable for somebody just to avoid conflict, and that's an easy thing to do. The balance between that and a 12-year-old who now won't put socks on or only wears pajama pants everywhere because it's uncomfortable and they don't like that, and has very public, very loud interactions in public because they don't, you know what I mean? Where's the balance between the two? Between making somebody comfortable and making them buck up and be uncomfortable. That's what I'm saying.
I don't know how we got to here, but I can tell you.
Because if you're in the sauna and people just want what they want, so they listen to their goddamn phone in the sauna at full volume because they don't care about the people around them because they want what they want.
Right.
And that's what I'm talking about. Like, I get I want what I want, and I should be able to have it because I like it or it makes me comfortable. But then there's also, which is a whole movement of parenting, right? Currently.
Sure.
But there's also how do you be a decent human in public with other people and, for example, not listen to your phone?
Here's the thing. My mom would have backhanded me in the mouth.
That's not appropriate either.
Well, let me tell you something. If I were doing something in public that was embarrassing to her, whack. One time. That's all you had to do. Once.
Right.
And that never happened again. I'm never going to throw a fit in the grocery store again because now I'm embarrassed because I just got smacked in the face and I want to cry, but I can't cry because people are around.
So our other daughter was talking about, she goes to the park almost every day with her kiddo. And she said almost every day I meet a different mom, a new mom I've never met before who's got a nonverbal kid. Oh, that's, their kid and they're autistic, they're nonverbal. She's like, what's going on with all the nonverbal autistic kids? And I'm like, well, I don't know. Are they nonverbal and autistic? Maybe. Or like when we were kids, if you were somewhere and your parents said, met somebody in the grocery store and they said, David, this is Mr. So-and-so, say hello. And you didn't say hello. What happened?
Smacked.
I'd get smacked up the backside of the head.
Yes.
So I'm not saying
smack your kids.
Save your emails. I'm not saying that was appropriate. In fact, and when you be very careful which clips are pulled from this episode to be published because it could sound really bad. I'm not saying, and in fact, I said earlier when you talked about your mom smacking you that it was inappropriate. That's not appropriate either. But where are we where common decency has just gone out the window and there's so much apathy? People just don't care.
Right. Okay.
They don't care about being appropriate and what is appropriate. And why are you listening to your phone in the sauna on full volume?
Listen, we want you to enjoy the session with Londa and David. We want you to enjoy it wherever you are, but we don't want you to do it at someone else's expense.
Yes.
It's not appropriate. The session with Londa and David wants to let you know that it's fine for you to listen when you're at the gym. If you've got headphones and they're not encroaching on someone else's life. I'm not trying to impose this program on people. I want people to find it and enjoy it
just
naturally.
Like when you take a phone call, I ask you to step out.
Right, that's right. Yes.
Step out. And part of it is you're loud when you're on the phone. You have cell yell because you have trouble hearing.
Correct.
And, I'm like...
Right.
It's the same
When
thing.
I'm in a restaurant and I get a phone call, I go out the front door and stand in the lobby. I do not sit at the booth where I'm eating and yuck it up.
What did I do today? We were at a coffee shop.
And you went outside to take a call.
And I went outside. Mm-hmm.
That's right. Be a good human person. And a good human person does not force everyone to be a part of their conversation.
It's interesting. I think the conversation is very interesting all the way around, but also the whole parenting thing I think is very interesting.
The gentle parenting thing doesn't work at all. Your kid doesn't get to run your house.
That's a really big statement. That's interesting.
Every one of our kids who gentle parent have gotten out of it. Every one of them. And I don't know why.
I would say... We can't use any clips from this show. I would say that I don't think there's one way to do anything. So I think pulling a little bit from here and a little bit from there. If you're gonna put a new engine in a car, or if you're gonna do a bunch of repairs on an engine in a car, you need a lot of different tools.
Sure. Not just one.
Right. If you're doing yard work, you need a lot of different tools, right?
Yes.
Not
and
just one.
parenting is the same way.
It's exactly the same way.
You can't just say, we don't tell Johnny no.
And you can't say gentle parenting doesn't work.
Well,
there are some pieces and parts of the gentle parenting.
Absolutely.
Google gentle parenting if you don't know what we're talking about. But there are pieces and parts of it that I think are marvelous.
There are pieces and parts of it. But deciding we are never going to tell our children no is going to create little sociopaths. It's going to create tiny monsters who run their households.
Little dictators.
Yes, little dictators.
I can attest that when my youngest child was about 2 years old, the youngest of 7 children in the home, okay? 2 years old, everybody doted on him. He was cute as a bug. He really was. And he was everybody's baby, right? But when he was about 2 years old, I sat the whole family down and said, you all have created a little dictator, and it stops now because everybody catered to his every whim and fancy. No, I see you, and no.
It's my favorite joke.
No, please no. So stick with this. I'm so interested to hear people's feedback. I wish we had like a studio audience that we could interview people and ask questions and find out how people feel about this and what they think. I did have a very fascinating conversation with our oldest daughter in the car yesterday. We were driving for quite some time, and we were talking about some of this and where do you, how she's like, if I've got, like my kid at bedtime, it's so crazy because they don't stay in their bed. How do you make them stay in their bed? I don't want to hit my kid, so spankings are out. She said, I've done the super nanny thing where if you remember the show Super Nanny, you just take them back and 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 take them until you out. It's like a episode of Survivor, outlast, outplay.
Yeah.
And what do you do? How do you enforce something without damage, I guess is what I'm asking.
When my kids were little, right? Caitlin and Benjamin, when they were little, bedtime was a ritual. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a fight. And I think that's the thing. You need to find ways to make each thing you want your kids to do fun for them, right?
And they do, and it's they're very very good about that. And then when it's actually time to stay in the bed, it's an issue. I gave her some ideas.
I used to lay down on the floor next to Caitlin's toddler bed, and I'd do voices and read stories in the voices, and then she'd lay down and put her little head on her pillow, and I'd lay down next to her little toddler bed and fall asleep sometimes at like 8:30 at night. Just fall asleep right there in her bedroom on the floor. Mm-hmm. And then when she got to be old enough to get out of that convertible crib, I bought her a full-size bed so I could lay in the bed and sleep. You know what I mean? And that was fun. So I would take her to bed, tell her little story, do Pakistani Panther or something.
Yeah.
And then I'd put my little head down on my pillow, and she'd put her little head down on her pillow, and off to bed she'd go. And 5 minutes later, I could get up and go back about my evening.
So that's interesting that you said that. That's actually, her kids want her to sit in the room until they fall asleep.
And that's a great thing to do.
Unless you're a full-time mom. And those kids have been up in your business
all day,
right? Every day. And now them not wanting to go to bed is encroaching on your time and sanity.
I think it's interesting that you say that because that was my ritual with Caitlin, not her mother's ritual with Caitlin. She got her break. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So having different jobs for each parent could be fun.
Sure. Yeah.
And I know for a fact that Christian often goes with the boys.
And
puts them to bed.
They're having the time of their lives while their mom's gone because daddy snuggles with them,
Yeah.
And lets them come into his bed sometimes. And they're having a big party time. I think it's just interesting. I did give her some tips too. They kind of feed off each other. So I was like, separate bedtimes for the boys, or separate, get them away from each other.
Yeah.
Move one of them out.
Meanwhile, when we were kids, there was no question. What are you doing out of bed? You get a smack on the butt.
My parents were terrifying. And that's not good either, right? I was terrified of my parents. And so my mom. And that's not good either, because she didn't feel like a safe place for me. I couldn't go to her and talk to her about anything because
I can't relate to that at all.
So it was just very different. I mean, I understand the struggle so much. And I realize we're not giving any real solutions here.
And there aren't any.
Because
That's
there
the
aren't
thing.
any. Yeah. There's just conversation. And I think having open conversation about it. But there are rules of etiquette. Come on, people. And once you're an adult and you're listening to your phone, listen,
In the sauna?
It's not just that. We were at a restaurant, and this older gentleman was taking a FaceTime call from his grandchild in the restaurant.
There at the table.
Right there at the table. And it's so loud, and it's so, I didn't pay for that.
Right.
I didn't
exactly
pay for
right.
that experience.
I didn't know I was taking a conference call today. Do you know what I mean? Holy cow. Did I miss my invite to the meeting? Because it's happening now, and here I am. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. That is shameful. If you're an adult and you want to enjoy some media on your phone, buy some headphones. You know what? I should get a pair to give away. Because, like the $14 iPerds or whatever, the earbuds that are almost
right.
Apple products.
iPads.
Yeah. So I can give them to somebody who's being rude. Here's a brand new set of headphones. Enjoy.
Well, the other thing is nobody wants to be told what to do.
Well, let me tell you, I loved it when I flew across the country a few weeks ago, because there was a kid with a giant iPad, and the kid was listening to Bluey or something, and the stewardess,
flight
attendant walked up and said, no, ma'am, does she have headphones? She's going to need a pair. You can't listen to that right now.
Yeah.
Headphones. And the mom was like, and then opened her bag and got out the headphones. You have to listen to flight attendants, by the way. It's air law.
Okay.
She did that to 2 people on that flight, and I loved it.
This opens up another thing for me, which is iPad kids.
iPad kids, you know what? If watching Bluey on your iPad keeps that 3-year-old from crying, I'm all for it. But get the kid headphones. Thank the Lord that the stewardess or flight attendant or whatever
it's not
we
that
call,
hard of a shift in
I don't know
language.
what we call them anymore. We don't call them sexy stews. We don't. That's not a thing we're allowed to do anymore. But whatever the case, it was great when she's like, "Oh no, ma'am, she's going to need headphones. Do you have headphones for our little angel here? A little headphone action? We're going to need some headphones. Let's go." And she had a very different tone with the man 3 rows back who was listening to something on his iPad as loud as it could possibly go. Actually, he was listening to something in Spanish, and this lady turns to him and says, no, you'll need headphones in Spanish. It was great.
Oh, wow.
She did, mira, and he looked at her, and she starts speaking to him in Spanish about headphones. It was awesome. It was awesome. You have to listen to the flight attendant, though. That's a little different. You don't have to listen to me if I'm trying to shame you in the gym by saying, while you're sitting in the sauna, hey, what are we watching?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
How about the guy with the headphones?
That were like old school 80s headphones, full volume. Yeah.
So everyone could hear it. And on top of that, he was singing full voice.
Yes. Full voice.
Sir.
In the middle of a public place.
Sir.
I didn't pay for this program.
We went on Saturday night, we went to the sauna because we're exciting like that. And
it was a hot date.
We were going to sit in the hot tub after the sauna.
Yep. Couldn't, though.
Then the pool, then the hot tub. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Couldn't do it because this joker went from the sauna. He left the sauna, and I thought, oh, thank goodness. Whew. We get out of the sauna, and I'll be damned if he's not sitting in the hot tub doing the same thing.
Eyes closed.
Full voice.
I mean,
we're not with you, sir.
Right. That's exactly right. We're not part of your party. We're not part of this group.
I can't do it.
I don't understand it, frankly. I don't get it.
The number of times in a week, and I know we're being pretty salty on this episode, but the number of times in a week that I have to just turn around and walk away from people in public so that I don't make a scene is extraordinary. I should keep track and report back next week how many times I just walked away and thought, fuck it, I don't need to get arrested today.
Do you remember we were in Karen Crow, Louisiana at the Waffle House? Do you remember some kid came in from like a traffic crew with his yellow vest and sat at the end of the bar and full volume listened to a show on his phone? Do you remember that?
No.
I almost lost my mind. And because the kid was in his mid-20s, it made me even more angry. Because that kid should know better. He wasn't 12.
Oh, he wasn't a child, yeah.
He was 25, 26 years old, probably a young father. And here he is, full voice, listening to a show. And
I
watching
don't understand it.
I don't get it either. And by all means, we want you to enjoy this program, but do it with your headphones on. Come on. Unless you're in your own wood shop, Bob, you can listen to it out there because you know why? It's yours.
Let me tell you, the stress of everybody being rude in public is making me have to go to the sauna 4 times a week so that I don't die of a stress-related illness.
I think that's a good place to wrap this thing up. That's good stuff. Good stuff. Anything else you want to talk about in the next 57 seconds?
I don't think so.
Okay.
But I would love to hear from people. I would love you to share this podcast. I don't often ask people to do that, but I think it's we're asking enough questions that I want other people to ask these questions, and then I want people to reach out to us. You can email me, Londa@SherwoodAustin.com, or you can reach me by phone. Google my name.
Yeah.
My phone's everywhere. I mean, yeah, my phone number's everywhere. But yeah, I'd love to hear from people and hear what you think about the things we've talked about.
There you go. If you're not wearing headphones, put them in right now and enjoy another episode of The Session with Londa and David. For Londa, Joanne Sherwood Austin, the prettiest girl in the world, it looks like spring has sprung. My name is David Austin. We'll see you again next week.